Good evening. It's another episode of the Larry Conley Radio Show. And we're starting off the new year. By the time you get this recording, it'll be around the first week in January. So we're excited about that. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm Larry Conley. Thank you. You probably don't know with all this stuff, there's the Larry there, Larry everywhere. But seriously, we are here for a kicking off the new year with another. I don't know. We've been doing this thing for a while. I think it's well over a decade. Got to be 12 or 13 years now, almost, that we've been doing this podcast. And a long time ago, it wasn't even a podcast. It was just a bunch of people talking on the recording, and we had people calling in and stuff. And it was kind of just a great sit down and talk. And then we got fancy and started having faces and visuals and all that kind of stuff. So now you get to see our beautiful faces when we do these podcasts. Now, also, this has been, we're coming off the holiday season. It's been a great season with Christmas and New Year's and all of that. But we also, I know 3 or 4 years ago, had some great losses in the process. I'm not going to dwell a lot on those, but I do want to acknowledge the loss of 2 people that were dear to me in the fire service. And one was Bobby Houghton, of course, and he died in December in 2022. And then that year, in January of 22, was Ben Paulson. And Ben Paulson is a guy that was on my crew at the time and died in a house fire tragically. So I always want to just not let these times and months go by without acknowledging those losses that we had in the fire service, especially since they're near and dear to me. Like I always say, you read about it and you have a generic empathy and love and sympathy for your brothers and sisters throughout the country, throughout the world, actually, who may die in these fires or died doing the job, however they died, whether it's on the roadways, the house fires, or even heart attacks and stuff like that at work. But when you know the people and it hits close to home, it hits different. So just wanted to make sure that I acknowledge those people as well as other those we have lost last year, and Lord, keep us safe this year for not too many more losses as we move ahead in this profession we call the American Fire Service. So that being said, I don't want to dim the whole conversation with grim and being upset. Let's just take a moment, and then after we take the moment, let's have some fun with our topic tonight. So David's a little under the weather, wasn't able to join us. And I said, man, don't come on the podcast because I don't want that cross. You don't know how these viruses work now. They might jump off the screen and come around and hit me in the face, and I can't afford to be sick. I don't like that. I don't like none of that that comes with it. I don't like all the stuff running out of you and stuff you got to put in you and all that. It's just not a good look, And of course, I don't want to disappoint all the millions of fans who tune into the show. So the show must go on, and hopefully David will be back. But I did find a handsome replacement, and I can say that, handsome replacement because he's my offspring, my son Joshua, and Joshua has a podcast of his own called Think for Yourself, and we're really excited about all the great work he does with that. Very controversial. He's been called a couple of names during his tenure with that, and also it stirred up some great things to really make you think for yourself. So I'm very proud of him on the podcast. I guess platform. I'm doing my thing, he doing his thing, and it's just a proud papa moment to watch your son go from a little tyke to a big tyke, and so I'm gonna brag about him a little bit. But the reason I've got him on today is because you might say, well, Joshua, is he a firefighter? Is he in the fire service? What's going on? And so we named this one family first. And the reason I say family first is because we consider our firefighting family as a family, and we put them first in a lot of ways, because if we didn't and have that intimate, strong connection, then we couldn't do the extraordinary things we do as a team as firefighters. But sometimes if we're not careful, we can kind of put our family at home on the back burner. And I'm not saying everyone does that. A lot of times people do have those priorities in place. But I know during my career, I was a very hard worker. And, I had a lot of energy and a lot of resilience, and I couldn't wait to get back to the job and then do other things. And then I went from not just working in the firehouse to instructor, teacher, and then that was local, then statewide, then went nationwide with that. So that kept me at the firehouse for those 24 hours. Then that kept me on the road, and it kept me pretty busy, and I was proud of it. And if I had the chance to do it over, I would do it again. Maybe definitely with a few tweaks and things like that. However, you can't forget your blood family, your family at home, or the people at home you're raising. And if you don't, it's kind of the same mantra I follow with anything. If you can't get it right at home, it's going to be hard to keep it right in the street. If you can't master what you do in your private life, it's going to probably spill over to your public life. And that's kind of the essence of what David and I teach when we travel around and doing our glue presentation. That's why we call it personal leadership. And even though I was basically preaching that and living it for the most part, there was still some little nuances I felt I could have done better. So a few years ago, Joshua and I had a very deep conversation according to this very topic we're going to be talking about tonight. And it kind of had an idea then that might be a great topic as a podcast, but I didn't want to mess it up with the deep conversation we was having, thinking like, ooh, this would be a good marketing thing to do. So that's not good. It won't come across genuine if I did that. But at the same token, I think that if I'm going through it, maybe someone else is going through it. If my son and my daughter had questions, maybe other people's son and daughters have questions too. And you don't want, in some cases, you really don't want to wait until they get grown to have these conversations, because if they're not as a well-adjusted kid as mine is, then you might have some bigger problems you're dealing with that will, conflict with your personal leadership and the A game that you're expected to bring to the firehouse. So with that being said, Josh and I had another talk, and we felt like maybe our conversation can kind of help people. If, like maybe your kids are little at this point, maybe they preteens, maybe they teenagers, whatever. If you can kind of make some adjustments, have some awareness or some perspective on, make sure you keep the main thing in your relationships, then perhaps something we can say in this segment can help. And so that's what we're here to do. We're here to help. We're not necessarily to brag about. I might do a little bragging, but we're not here to brag about my kid or his dad or say we got it right. A lot of things will hopefully come out today organically. We'll let you know maybe there's a lot of things we could have did better. But we want to have that conversation to share with you all, so it can plant seeds maybe to have the unique conversations you need to have or can have with people in your family, whether it's your kids, whether it's your spouse, whatever. You can have these kind of conversations and then really show up and fortify your personal leadership. And that's what it's all about. It's our brand. That's what we do. That's what we teach, that personal leadership brand with the Glue and Power model. So I'm excited. It's always exciting to, I do it with David all the time, and it's always a blessing to be able to have our message and ministry with your brother, with a sibling. Then a lot of times you all heard us for a long time, that before my mom kind of retired from this kind of thing on the podcast, she was part of the family business as well. And you probably remember her famous line, when David and I get to clowning, I did the best I could. And, saying she did, and she still says it so to this day, even though she doesn't say it on the air. So, so it's good to always check in with family, because this is where it starts. This is the base of everything. And if we get that base right, then we can build skyscrapers on top of it. But you can't build a good skyscraper if you don't have a good base. So you can reach the height of heights if your base is right. So all that being said, family first, that's the name of this episode. And I was trying to think of some catchy, subtitles to go with it, like, beyond the badge at home. It's beyond the badge. It's not just about the badges. It's what we do at home, or the shift never ends. And my son taught me about being a firefighter and a father, stuff like that, and it could have been family first, fire always, a father and son conversation on leadership. I thought about that one. Through the eyes growing up with a firefighter's dad. That sounds so. Anyway, we don't know which tagline it's going to be. I'm just being kind of organic about our ideas. You got to realize that part of the appeal of this show is not a polished and perfect show on purpose, because firefighters aren't polished and perfect. You want polished and perfect, go work somewhere else. But we kind of down and dirty with how we get down. And sometimes these organic conversations are the best way to really connect with people. And we appreciate being able to share that with you. So without further ado, I want to introduce my son. And let me say this, I've said this about Joshua before. And I'm not saying it just because he's listened to me. Now, if Joshua wasn't my son and I met him somewhere in whatever the kind of chance old man and young man would meet, work on a project together, maybe worked at the same company or something like that, I would just like him anyway as a person. Because let's be real. You got people, you just came off the holidays. You done ran into these people that you had to hang out with that were family, but you really didn't like them. You love them, but you don't like them. You're okay with them. They come in the living room, you go in the dining room. They come in the kitchen, you go in the bathroom. They try to come in the bathroom, you lock the door. You know what I'm saying. These are just people that if you wasn't related to them, you just wouldn't fool with them. So I get it. But and I might have a few people like that, but I'm not going to bust them out on the air like this. But I can say that with my son Joshua, if I just met him at a work environment or any other church or something like that, I would just like him, period. So that makes it an added bonus of being his dad. It's not just about, oh, he's my son, and I'm generically proud of him because he's my son. I'm proud of him as a person he's becoming to be. And the things that are like me and the things that he's definitely better than me in, when it comes to his beliefs and morals, integrity and stuff like that. So it's a blessing to have him as a son. So I just wanted to put that out there because I'm forgetful. I'll look at this podcast later, say, I wish I would have said it. Now I said it. It's on record. So he knows and all that. And Joshua might have some money stashed up somewhere, so help your dad out, because that was a great compliment. I guess $8 compliment I gave you, So, but anyway, so in today's episode, we're going to be. It's not about tactics. It's not about rank. It's not about command presence. It's some of the topics we normally cover. Today, it's about leadership at home, and if we can handle leadership at home, and then everything can be a wellspring from that foundation. So this is my son, Joshua Christopher Conley, and I'm Larry Christopher Conley. So you kind of see the similarities except for the first name. You got a biblical name. I don't know what Larry means, but a biblical name. And then I think it stands for Father of Joshua or something. But we have that in common. Joshua is currently in law school. My man in law school down at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. That's where his dad graduated and got his master's from last year. So we're going to keep the alumni strong with the Conleys. And that's how we do. We educated and highly favored by belief in our spiritual maker. Josh is a law student. I found this out since he's been home. Out of 140 people in Joshua's class, Joshua ranks currently number 20. Wow. Yeah. kudos for that. Number 20. I don't know. Law school sounds pretty hard to me. I think I'd be number 39, 139 and a half, teetering, like 140, almost fall into 141, whatever it is. But my man Josh here is in number 20 out of 140 is the podcast. Like I said, author of what I told you, think for yourself, look forward at all the podcasts, podcast platforms you can check out. And he has a great show and really controversial stuff to make you think. And not controversial just to be controversial. It's just that when you read mainstream media and stuff like that, and you say, that's the facts, Joshua doesn't believe it. He goes deeper. And by golly, being a lawyer is probably the best thing he could have been, because he loves to argue the point and bring out details that you like, never looked at it like that, but you might win a case with that argument, So, but in his spare time, he likes to box. He works out all the time. He took his shirt off one day when he was at home. I'm like, damn, man, what are you doing, man? You're a little skinny kid. Now you got the definition of oh, yeah, So you had to keep it covered up with baggy clothes, because when he breaks out with it, bam, watch out. So I'm surprised, I don't want to say what I want to say. But right down there, law school, he's handsome, he's cut. Ladies, I'm just saying. Anyway, come on. Lucky you got good morals, because this could go really bad. Really, I may have more grandkids or something. Who knows? But anyway, so he's my son. He's like I say, boxes for a hobby in his spare time. And I think he got a match coming up sometime in spring, so he's getting ready for that. So I'm not interviewing the expert. I'm gonna be listening to my son. And that's how this podcast is going to go. So, excuse me. So without further ado, because we don't want to keep you past the 4 hours that you're going to be listening to all this. No, not seriously, but we want to make sure it's informative and digestible, so to speak. So let's get started. So in our first segment, Josh, I was going to talk about, let's kind of walk this back, from a kid's point of view. And I know, you grew up with a firefighter dad. I've been a firefighter as long as you've been in the world. I was a firefighter before you got here.
Yeah.
And so what do you remember the most about growing up with a firefighter dad?
The first thought that I always have is we couldn't go anywhere without somebody knowing you. Going to the store, going to get a haircut or something like that, and some random person, at least to me, is like, hey, I know that guy. So we're sitting there for another 45 minutes or whatever, at wherever we're at, because everyone is privy to the great Larry Conley. So it made errands go a little long, but outside of that, it was a lot of, I guess, pride, because it's cool to be able to say that, hey, my dad does this. It's cool to see how people interact with you and the respect that they have for you. Then at home, though, it is a little bit of an interesting dynamic, at least because of how we had it set up, where we're over there for maybe a weekend or so. If the weekend calls for being at the firehouse for the whole time or the majority of it, it is interesting. It's hard to understand it at that time because I'm not really privy to specifically what's going on, but it does create, I guess, unpolished questions that I might have later, is, like, what's the setup or whatever. Because if we come over and, there's a weekend where we don't see you as much, it is like, well, this is dad's time or whatever, but we don't see dad that much when he's here. I wonder why, this, then the third. So it was a mix of stuff. I guess depending on who you ask specifically, they'll kind of hone in on one over the other. Like I said, for me, it's mainly just questions that I might have, but I might not know how to articulate them until I get older, until I understand specifically what the job entailed and why it rendered so much of your time. Obviously, it makes sense now, but like I said, at the time, it's still up in smoke because I'm not sure what's going on. So,
Mm-hmm. Now I can relate, and when you're kind of driven and kind of the kind of person who's driven and trying to always make sure you do this to the best of your ability, and maybe taking on more responsibilities with, other jobs, other things that support your job, even outside the job, and takes away from the house. I can see from your perspective how that could be like, hey, where's my dad? So
yeah.
but at least it wasn't where's my dad, like, he went out, got a pack of cigarettes and came back kind of with some
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there wasn't that type of thing. So how did the schedule, the shifts, the nights, the holidays and things like that kind of shape what you said, shape your home life?
Like I said, it was definitely interesting. I never had like an insight into maybe like a friend's life or whatever, or what their dynamic was. So it didn't seem abnormal to me. That, maybe, I'd see you at night, or, I wouldn't see you during the day, or I'd see you during the day and not at night, or maybe there's a holiday in which, not everybody's together or whatever. So at least initially it didn't seem abnormal. I guess maybe it had a bit more of a somewhat emotional effect on me the older I got, because it's like, well, now I'm in the developmental stages of my life where, I need, at least to a degree, these specific players present as much as possible so that I can learn this, or I can know how to do that, or whatever. So I think maybe it started to have more of a specific impact the older I, like maybe into my teens or whatever, where if that presence wasn't there as much as at least I would like it to. And like I said, I mean, it is what it is, because sometimes the job calls for that time. But if I'd like more time and it wasn't available, well, then it's kind of hard to sometimes navigate that. But then on the flip side, I feel like, and maybe sometimes to a fault, which is what I'm working on now, but just kind of seeing like the dedication to that craft specifically. I don't think it was a selfish sacrifice necessarily. Like some people, they want to allot their time for them to go accomplish what they want to do. Obviously, in this case, is to make sure that you're taking care of specifically what needs to be done. Make sure there's a roof over the head, clothes, food, etc. And then the gravity of the actual job itself, it's a monumentous responsibility. It's not just, I'm gonna go punch in for a few hours and then come back. It's actually, taking care of people's lives or whatever. So the older I get, I understand the dynamic. And then it also, like I said, it's trickled to me because it has rendered a certain drive within myself where, like I said, sometimes it might be to a fault. So I'm working on it. But at least right now, my drive is relentless to do what it is that I set out to do in all these different fields that I'm in hopes that one day, the reasoning for it is much bigger than myself. It's not just, I want to be number one in law school, or I want to go fight this dude and knock him out, or I want to, be in the gym and, make sure that I'm in shape or whatever. I don't want it to just be for me. At some point, I'm like, well, I wanted to make sure that I'm doing it for the betterment of the people that, I'm tasked with taking care of. Right. So it's trickled into that because now I feel it. So I feel uncomfortable if I'm not being productive, or if I'm not absolutely trying to annihilate what's specifically in front of me. But like I said, it might be misguided, because in your case, it was, I'm doing this, yes, it's the job, but the absolute complete foundation is to make sure that I'm taking care of what needs to be taken care of at home, even if you're not there. So with, I guess, the bad or whatever, I found some good out of it to balance it out, just until I got to a place in my life where I could consciously understand what it is that was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I know that I was gone a lot as far as that. And then added on top of that, volunteering at the burn camp,
Yeah.
at the children's burn camp, and doing that for a week. And then not only the planning it took throughout the year for that. So, if you don't always have a busy work schedule, let's add in a volunteer, commitment of a burn camp.
Yeah.
So would you say, so do you think you've covered already, like as a kid, maybe the stuff you didn't understand about my work and now you kind of have a better grasp at it as you're older? But as a kid, you looked at it different, I guess. You were saying earlier, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I understand it now. As much as I probably could, there's still probably some gray area. I think I might have hit this probably at your birthday last year, but like in terms of like the burn camp or whatever, I obviously I think it's incredible, and then the small insight that I've gotten into it, to be present for survivors of such horrific situation, person to person or whatever. It's important to have that on the cards necessarily, because it's not enough just to pay the bills or to take care of stuff at home. If your life permits you, I think in a sense it's essentially your duty to step outside and do something that's a bit more of like an extracurricular, for lack of a better phrase, to help other people just for the sake of doing it. Mm-hmm. So I love it. And then, like I said, the time that I've spent around it, I've definitely seen why it's important. Like I said, the one thing though, like selfishly, that I slightly hit on is seeing the interactions with, individuals at the camp or whatever. Sometimes I'll look at it and I'm like, that's fantastic. And then I don't like to compare, but it's hard not to do it just naturally as a human being. I'm like, sometimes it'd be nice to see that specific engagement at home. And then I like I said, I think, and I'm like, well, if you're gone for 24 hours, because the job calls for it, then you come back. Sometimes it's like, man, you're just so drained and tired. It's hard to bring that. Mm-hmm. And, there's obviously room to improve in all areas. It's like, you definitely want to try your hardest to give your best to the people who, I come first. It sounds selfish, but like, spouses, family, kids, etc. Mm-hmm. So it's something that I'm keeping in the back of my mind, and what I'm trying to do. Obviously, this is going to be a time consuming, stress inducing career path. So I want to make sure that when I come home to, the kids or the wife or, whenever that happens, that I'm mustering up the strength to be able to give them what I'm giving to the outside world or whatever. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like I can, at 25 now, I look at my life and I'm like, well, I wouldn't be who I was if things hadn't gone specifically the way that they had gone. And it's other people, not saying it's necessarily justifiable for parents and their kids to not have super tight relationships, but there are other people who definitely need the attention and the care a lot more than me at this age, because I can handle myself now. So when I see, burn survivors interacting with you in that environment, I'm like, that it warms my heart, because I'm like, well, I'm cool, right? We could do the shoulda, woulda, couldas all day long, and we're still alive, so it's not like it's too late or whatever. But like at a certain level, if I'm like, well, I wish I would have got this type of affection when I was 12 or whatever. It's like, but if these people are getting it as well, I'm like, well, there's something that's coming from it, and I'm cool with that as of now, and then we can navigate us from where we're at. So.
No, it's a very mature way of looking at it, and then it kind of hits on some of the conversation you and I had, off record a few years back, to where we went out and chopped it up and talked about it, and I appreciate that because everybody doesn't always get a chance to have those type of conversations with their dad for clarity. They don't know how to do it, or maybe it's too late because their parents no longer with them. So I feel blessed that we were able to have that insightful conversation, and I didn't initiate it. That was something that you did, and I think it's very commendable and says a lot about your character. And I was glad to be able to just be candid without being judged with you about the whole thing. I mean, there's some things that, we probably shouldn't say on this segment because, it's regulated by the FCC, but seriously, to be able to have a candid conversation about it was actually, it might have been, relief to you to hear some things, but it was relief to me to be able to talk about it and say where my headspace was at, and also admit some places that I definitely could have did better if I could do it over. The next segment is we talk about, I guess, a perspective shift, and so how do you? Yeah, and I think you kind of hit on this, like how's your perspective has changed as an adult, and maybe and what you understand then. So I think we kind of hit those points already, and but maybe you can kind of clear this up a little bit more. Like, what lessons did you absorb without me ever explicitly teaching them to you?
I think just being more understanding and not doing it to a fault. I think some people can be too understanding to the point where they allow people to rob them of their respect and dignity, so to speak. So if you have a parent who is, very capable and is abstaining from their parental responsibilities, up to a point, I feel like it's inexcusable. And to say, well, I'm just trying to be understanding. Maybe they're going through something, this, that, or the third. I feel like you're doing too much to lower yourself to ensure that their feelings are not getting hurt, while not acknowledging the fact that you're human as well. You have feelings or whatever. But that wasn't the case here. I'm just saying that to a fault, you can do that.
Right.
But at least from our dynamic, I definitely I learned how to be more understanding, because in thinking about the nature of the job, like I said, it's cut and dry. Like I said, you're not just clocking in at like a store and then leaving or whatever. You're a firefighter. I've seen you on TV before, working in an ambulance. Like there's a bunch of dynamics to it, and it is so deep. So in doing a bit of self-reflection, I'm like, you have to have a lot of mental and emotional fortitude to be able to be in that space for as long as you were and still are. Because for somebody like me, I'm very like sensitive, and at times I can get emotional. I don't know if I could have hacked it, because I'd be crying like after every single, even if nobody got hurt, a fire hits. I'm not out here crying every day. But when it comes to like people and what people are going through, it's a real soft spot for me, and it's hard for me. That's why I got to be careful about the field of law I go into, because if I get too attached, it might actually hinder me if I can't learn to move forward from it. So I definitely think it takes a lot of fortifying of yourself to be able to withstand that career for such a long time. And it might result in there might be some type of emotional lack between yourself and myself or somebody else, and it might be unintentional, but it might just be it might be something that's useful for the job itself, and I'm not sure how hard it is to turn it on or turn it off. Like I said, it's something that I'm kind of going through now in a slightly different way. It's hard for me to turn off the drive. Like, I'm on break right now, and I brought my books home. I'm like in my free time, I'm ducking off what is assault and battery, like a crazy person. And it's like But I've been in school for the past 4 months. Every day I'm doing it. And I've had to kind of rewire myself to be able to withstand it, because it's hard being away. And then it's rigorous because I'm in law school. Everyone there at minimum has a bachelor's degree. So it's like the all-star game for school. You get all the best players in the world on the court,
Right.
and you're asked to go out there and compete with them, because like they're in law school for most of these classes, they can only give you 1A, and everyone else, they get a grade below that. So like it's hard, and you kind of have to turn into a different type of person to withstand it, or else you're not going to survive there. So I'm trying to turn it off and on depending on my current situation. So I think that kind of going and growing up, and now that I'm older and I understand it, you can't, and I'm only speaking from the outside in, but I find it hard to believe that being a firefighter, being a police officer, even being in the military, I don't think you can go in there and it's sunshine and rainbows, so I'm just going to be chilling. And, I feel like you kind of have to be hard a bit to be able to handle everything that comes with it. And especially the unfortunate situations that you've experienced as of late. I mean, for some that would break them, and it's okay to experience the emotion, but then to be able to recover from it, you have to be able to have that switch to be okay. Well, now, the job is back, and it doesn't mean I'm disregarding what happened. It's just the job calls for me to be here. So I have to be able to operate at a certain level. And I get it now. Like I said, and that's why I'm focused on, where we're at now and going from there. Because you can't go back and change stuff. And as a kid, I might not understand it. And it's hard to explain to a kid that, hey, this is what I do. This is kind of how I have to be. It sucks sometimes, but this is just what it is. But now that I'm here and I'm at this age, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, still, it would have been nice for some things to be different, but I understand it a bit more now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, and I appreciate that because, and especially talking to you now, because you see kind of the other side of the curtain with it. And to your point, there are some similarities in, when you show up at a fire, everybody has to be on a game as well, because you got a few A game people and a bunch of C game people is going to prolong things and make things worse, or it just can go a number of bad ways. So everyone does have to be in this a direct result of their training, or like you said, know how to turn it on when it's go time, but then know how to turn it off or dial it down when you get home, and have to be, gentle, kind, and empathetic with your family. And so you can't be gentle. You can be empathetic, but you have to use that as motivation to drive to go in and do some of the things we do. But the hardness and the ruggedness and the roughness of the firehouse and the fire scene is not a good place to be at home. So you do have to know how to, and, to the point of what we're talking about lately, we've been really doubling down on this mental fitness and mental health initiatives and stuff. A lot of firefighters are finding that if they don't turn it off, it continues to drive them, and this will lead to things like permanent endings to their lives, and or slow endings by bad habits that erodes them from the inside out, and they don't know how to navigate that. So. And it can happen in the profession, but since it's such a heightened thing that we do among the few other professions in the world, it's a bigger propensity for us to suffer from the backlash and not being able to manage it well if we don't. But that comes with having to work that balance. And like I said, you have to be, when it's time to go time, you got to go. But it can't always be go time. You can't always be activating your sympathetic nervous system. You gotta maintain that parasympathetic so you can live to see another day from a quality of life standpoint. No one wants to get their pension and then die the next day because they just mismanage their health issues, their mental issues, and psychological issues. So I'm glad you're learning that in your particular profession because you're going to be dealing with pressure too in what you do. It's not the same type of pressure, but it doesn't make my pressure better or worse. But we're still dealing with our own pressures nonetheless. And I'm glad that some of the things that you saw me, observe me do growing up and continue to do helps add to the balance you need to be successful in your career as an attorney. The unspoken, as we'll talk about that next. What's the unspoken? Do you feel like there are conversations as a kid that we should have had that we didn't have? And when I say we, let me make sure I'm clear. I'm not trying to get you to lead the dance like, as a kid, you should have orchestrated and facilitated this, because, you're the one with the issue. I'll put the onus on me. Mm-hmm. But now that you are a grown person, like I said, I'm not saying the dance should be led by you, but maybe looking back or maybe how you were feeling then, what were the kind of conversations that you probably thought we should have had back then and put the weight on me?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that, I'm only speaking from assumption because I'm not a parent, but I just kind of get the general sense that if you're a parent and you're involved in your child's life, that there's a default expectation that they trust what it is that you're doing. And sometimes it might go unsaid. And for the most part, it's true. I was a kid, so I don't know specifically, but I don't ever recall like questioning you or my mom, a lot on like how you parent, like, and is this good for me or whatever. But I definitely think that it would have been helpful, to specifically lay out the foundation of what it is that you have going on, just so that, like I said, as I got older, because when I'm a kid, I'm confused, but it doesn't have a whole lot of bearing or weight on me because I'm confused about a lot of stuff. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
It's more just for, like I said, the older I get in those developmental years and stuff that's confusing to me, it starts to weigh on me. Mm-hmm. That I think it hit me hard because I definitely remember being in like middle school and then early high school, and like a portion of maybe from like 7th to maybe like, I don't know, maybe when I was like a junior in high school, life felt very, very confusing and hard and tense. And it was difficult to pinpoint why. So I definitely think that as a kid, it would have been helpful, even if I didn't understand it, maybe at a later point to reiterate it. Mm-hmm. Of, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is why I'm doing it. But more specifically, this is what I do, so that you're not, wondering like, hey, I'm over dad's house, but, where's dad at? Oh, he's at the firehouse, but I don't know why. And in my head, I'm thinking, it's a job. You go there at 9, you come home at like 4 or 5, you got a fire scheduled at 1, to go put it out. You come home. I'm like, okay, it's done. Right. And it, like I said, obviously that's not how it goes, but it's just the dynamic of what the career entailed was something that I was not privy to at the time. Mm-hmm. And I think once the confusion hit me at a point where I was conscious of life and it's time for me to, start becoming a man and making my own decisions, it definitely had a bit more of an impact, because at that point I didn't feel like I was behind the 8 ball at life. But then it like I said, it were some things in which I'm like, well, I love the dynamic of, like a parental system, is you get some stuff from your mom, your dad, and then you develop into the person that you're supposed to be. And if you're not a crazy person, well, then you'll take those and then you grow up into hopefully a decent human being who can contribute to society. It's definitely, and it's controversial, but that type of dynamic is something that I live by because I see its importance. Is there's things that I'm gonna get from my mom that I can only get from her. Right. But because I can only get certain things from her, that means the other part I have to get from my dad. And if I don't, there's only so much that she can do. And then vice versa. There's things that I get from you. I mean, she can try, but there's certain things that she will not be able to hit that mark on because of her role specifically. So kind of coming up, and getting older is not being aware of the dynamic of the job and allowing me to be a little bit more understanding of, okay, maybe my development will be delayed here, or maybe I'll need to step up here, or maybe we'll need to specifically allot time for us because of the craziness of the job and the schedule or whatever. It definitely put me in a limbo at times. I'm not going to lie about it. So I if we had that maybe every now and then a little bit more specific, the older I got, since I'd be able to understand it more, that would have definitely did numbers for me in terms of being able to understand better. And then, like I said, us figuring out how that dynamic meshed, because at a certain point it did feel like, okay, well, this is dad's time, so we're with dad. And then this is mom's time, so we're back with mom. And then it just kind of felt like that. And sometimes it felt like the intentionality of the specific time went away because everyone's busy and, for good reason. But right. Us as kids, if we don't understand it, it just feels like, okay, this is dad's time, so we're here. This is mom's time, so we're here. And then that's how it goes. Just for the betterment of development for me specifically, having a conversation of why the schedule is the way it is and what it is, I think would have been great.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And, and parents have to take responsibility for the decision we make as parents that, where the kids have to do what we say, but maybe we can do better and helping them understand at their level, the why, which is a part of a, structural and teaching thing. I believe in when somebody understands the why, they perform better. Yeah. And, the reason behind it says, just do what I say. And and also, I think what I've reflected on, I know we've talked about this before, is that I was so rigid, I guess, in the sense about, okay, it's kid time. So I would say, okay, it's kid time. It's the boys' time, was the girls' time. And that today, the boys, we can ready to go get haircuts, do whatever, and get McDonald's if y'all didn't cry. And then when it was girl time, I took the girls and we did stuff. But here's what I reflected on. And some of it was even before our conversation, and some of it was got solidified more after. What I could have did better was, instead of saying it's the boys' time, it's the girls' time, there need to be more time where I said it's Joshua time, or it's Cortland time, or it's Chelsea's time, or it's Christine's time. I should have did that more, because you might be part of the boys, assembly or the boys group, but you're still Joshua. Yeah. And Joshua needs something different than Cortland and vice versa. So I could have definitely did that better, because when you are intentional, then we increase our chances for better communication, less misunderstanding, less interpretation of what you think things are. And with that being said, I just think that it would eliminate probably a lot of like why and whatever, and what if processing, it would help with the process. And so in my reflection, I remember that's one of the things that stood out with me for that. What do you now, when you look back, what do you wish kids understood about their dad's demanding careers?
Just that it's not, how do I word this? It's going to sound bad, and it's easier to say from this perspective because I'm, older now. So, and I'm still here and I'm not, tripping out on life. it's not as bad as it appears to be, especially if there's, like I said, a general understanding between the parties of what the situation is. The primary purpose of it is to take care of what's going on. Like, I think I can do anything that I put my mind to. I was playing basketball for the longest time. That's not happening without this. So, I'm.
Believe me, yes, I know.
Yeah, so it's not happening without taking us there. It's not happening without providing the resources for us to do it. And in the moment, if it's a Saturday and we don't have anything going on, it can definitely suck, and at times it does. But then, like I said, once you're actually doing life, like engaged in things, that doesn't just come out of nowhere. Someone has to foot that bill, someone has to provide for it. And me as an 11-year-old, I'm not going to do it. So there's benefit to it, and it's not just to get things. Because even me, I'm not really a materialistic person. I like experiences. I like to try things or do things or whatever. So that meant more to me than dad's going to work so he could buy me a toy or something like that. So I think if you can phrase it into like my mom or my dad, they're doing this and it's very demanding, and it can be rewarding for them, but then just the level at which it is, like, I'm not, like I said, once again, I'm not trying to compare because one is not necessarily better than the other. Right. But clearly in terms of like a career hierarchy, like there's certain ones that are like here, etc. There's a lot more that can be gotten from it. And it's not even just, what they can do for you. It's the type of person that they become through it as well. So, right. I think if kids, especially when they become of age and they're conscious of like what's going on to a degree, if they can try to understand it from that perspective that, hey, this is demanding, it takes a lot of time, but if there is any way possible in which the parents and the children can get some type of understanding as to what the situation entails, then it can be easier for them to understand that this is a good thing. It's not always going to be, but the alternative could be is that your mom or your dad, they're not applying themselves, they're not fulfilling their, role as parents as thoroughly as they could with the knowledge that they have. It could be that they're not, helping people in the way that they could. It could be that they're shortchanging themselves because, they're nervous that, such a demanding career might take away from, what it is that they could do at home or whatever. There's too much to do on this planet to be just kind of, to just kind of be like just chilling. Like there's so much to do. There's so many people to help, and there's so much to find out about yourself. And you're really only going to do that if you're doing something that is grueling, that's demanding, and that takes a lot of time. And, life's not perfect. So you're not going to make every single holiday or see every birthday. And it's great if that's the case. But if both parties can figure out a way to exemplify the nature of what it is that you do and why you do it, I think that, kids, especially, like I said, if they're aware to a degree, I think that they can get better understanding why it is that someone is doing what it is that they do.
Mm-hmm. When you become a parent, what were some of the things you would probably use based on your experience coming up in the system? Lessons learned from me on what to do or what not to do, and what would be your ideal roadmap for your parenting based on your experience?
The first is to be as active as possible, and what I mean by that is, like, it's not, I don't think it's a mark of a good man to say that he did like 75 different things at once in his life. It's cool if you can manage it, but realistically that calls for burnout. Quality is more what I'm looking at, and the better you get, the more capable you become at producing high quality in a lot of different fields. So you're not just a firefighter. You do a plethora of other things. But the quality that's produced, it shows what somebody's capable of. And the one thing that I'll always say, and I've said it a million times before, and I'll say it again, is I'm not just trying to put my hands in so many different baskets just to stay busy or, just to have a bunch of things on the cards or whatever.
Right.
I do it because I watched you do this, that, and the third, and do it as fully as possible, whether it was burn camp, whether it was glue, whether it was, the fire service. Same with my mother. I watched her do a plethora of things, and it's not always easy. But the way that you all did it, it made it look like it to me. I didn't ever really hear a bunch of complaining or whatever. And if it was done outside of my view. So when I grew up, it took me a minute. I was 4'1", 50 pounds going into my senior year of high school. So it took a minute for that confidence to get there. But I'm at a point now, and once again, I don't want to do it to a fault because I don't want to burn out and I don't want to burn the relationships in my life. But
Right.
I think that I can do anything. And I don't think I think it's important to do it, whatever it is that you're doing, as thoroughly as possible, because even if you don't specify to your kid that, hey, you can do anything, because honestly, I can't think of a time in which I heard someone say that to me, that, hey, Josh, you can do anything, like you put your mind to, just go for it. I don't think I've ever heard anyone specifically say that, which, I mean, it is what it is because I saw it. I saw the example of it,
It's called the talk thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So just by default, just by observing you all, I'm like, well, they're doing all this stuff, I can do it too. So everything that I'm doing right now, and like I told you, it's a running joke at school, I'm the crazy guy who's staying, in the library till 2:00 in the morning, and, I'm working over break and I'm doing all this stuff or whatever, and I'm working on it. But at minimum, the one thing that I can say that, I believe wholeheartedly, regardless of what anyone tells me, is that everything that I set my mind to, I could do it, and I'm going to leave no stone unturned, because I've been in that situation before where, like primary example with basketball. When I first started, I was better than all the kids, but that's because these like 8-year-olds are just out here trying to have fun. I'm out here trying to drop 30. So I'm thinking like I need the most points. We have to win. And if we don't, I'm not going to be happy. I remember one time I was playing and we were losing, and I was so mad. And I remember it so vividly. I had like 16 points. I'm like 8 or 9. I had like 16 points. We're losing though. And I'm like, man, this sucks. I take off my jersey and I think I like go to the bathroom, and I'm in the middle of the game, and I come out and I'm walking around the edge, and you pull me to the side and you're like, go put that bleep bleep jersey back on. The game's not finished. And I put it on, and I got in and I fouled out on purpose because I was so upset. And as soon as we got back, I'm running up and down the subdivision, because at that point it's game over. It's like, you don't do that. But at that point, I'm thinking like, I'm here to win. These kids are here to have fun. That's a problem. As soon as I got to the next level, I got just my tail handed to me, because like my version of me got tainted. I'm thinking I'm schooling these 8-year-olds who are just here to have fun. As soon as I get to some real hoopers, who do this like in their sleep, they wake up, it's basketball. They go to sleep, it's basketball. And they're dropping buckets. And, I caught up eventually, but at that point it's too late. I'm in college. I haven't given my life to this. So at that point I felt empty, because I'm like, this is what I tied my identity to, but I didn't give it everything that I possibly could have. I left too much on the table. So going into that next phase of life, I made the decision with myself that that's not going to happen again. Is if I don't attain something, or if someone gets the better of me, they would have had to gone through hell to get it, or I would have had to have laid it all out. And I can be okay with the fact that if I don't get it, I at least tried as much as I possibly could have. And that's where I'm at now, is everything that I want to get, I'm going to do it and I'm going to work hard for it, or else I'm going to put everything on there and at least put forth the effort. Right. And all that to say is, like I said, I saw that from you. I saw that from my mom. But like I said, primarily from you because of how much it is that you do in the specificity of what it is that you're doing. That's a lot on one person. So I'm definitely taking that, because even if you don't say it, like, hey, child, you can do whatever it is that you want to do, just showing it, like, at minimum, it worked because it's wired in me now. So like I said, I'm definitely taking that 100%. But then, like I said, on the flip side, pairing it with the dialogue that I feel needs to happen on the back end, which is, hey, you see what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. I'm doing it, for X, Y, and Z, to make sure that we're, in alignment with how this is going to go. I don't want you to be, curious about, what is dad doing? Why is dad, spending so much time here and not there? And then it's not even just to stop there. It's to see, okay, from the situation that we have where, this takes so much of dad's time, how on the back end can we make up for that? Or, hey, this is our time, or this is what we do, or whatever. So I feel like those are the branches that I'm a pull from when that time comes in my life where I can be a dad. Hopefully it works out for me. So we'll see.
Right. No, I think you're going to make an excellent dad. And I think if you take those lessons that you learned, that you lived through, you definitely are laying the foundation for greatness when it comes to parenting. Because, learn from the stuff that we didn't do well as pick up on the things we did do well. I like that you have a balanced approach, because a lot of times kids will remember the bad stuff, or what they perceive as bad, like, oh, my dad was so mean. He made me run the cul-de-sac in the subdivision after the game because he wasn't pleased with my performance. And not putting it in the perspective of, like, there was a lesson here. Because if you remember, I used to say, if you lose and you just lose, that was okay. But if you're going to lose with it, you just can't. And remember, I used to tell you a long time ago, when you play sports, I'm not looking for you to be the next LeBron James, Michael Jordan. That's not what this is about. If that's what happens, or there's evolved from it, hey, so be it, for the blessing. But these are life lessons. That this is one part of life lessons, along with the other things that we were trying to use to, teach you about teamwork. Remember, I used to tell you all the time, you can start the sports, but you can't quit it. Not in the middle. You don't have to do the next session, after this. No, but you're going to finish this session.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that because, I'm a big bad dad trying to be mean. I just know in life, you can't always quit. You got to finish it out, or at least finish a necessary portion of it to have some success, So, and that's that. So I'm glad to be able to live to see that particular evolution. It was worth the investment, because I'm gonna tell you, you in Cortland playing AU ball, and Chelsea and Christine doing cheer and dance and track and all that. Ugh, man, I could have bought a few Corvettes by now.
Yeah.
But it was worth the investment, considering the lessons you all learned from it. So I appreciate being able to witness that as a dad, and hopefully one day you can as well. Talking to Joshua's younger self about, let me start out. I'll say to me, I'll talk about me, and then we'll kind of wrap it up with you talking to your younger self, and kind of put a bow on it like that.
Yeah.
So as we begin to kind of bring this bring this conversation to a close. And I want to say this too. I don't want this to be the last conversation we have. This is kind of start up. I know you and I vibe on a few other things that we believe in and achievement and leadership and things like that. So I want to, eventually continue to have, it don't have to be this particular segment, but, where, your viewpoint, my viewpoint, you kind of at the beginning, I'm in the twilight, and then, so lessons learned and lessons have yet to be learned, I think is a good way we can, meet at that intersection.
Yeah.
But telling my younger self being a dad, like I think I alluded to it before, I was always 1 + 1 is 2, period. What's next? I don't know why we got to discuss it, because that's it. But there is a factors that kick in. Like sometimes there's 1A plus 2 equals 3 or whatever, And if you don't acknowledge those few things in the middle that matter, then you can lose some valuable teaching points, some valuable needs in the kids you're raising if you're not sensitive to that. So what I would just tell my younger self is, hey, lean more into the moment of each individual child and don't treat them like a box where you checked off. I was guilty of that. I'm not working overtime or I'm not doing anything today. I'll be working at the camp. I'll be working at home and I'm not at the camp. I'm not at work. I'm going to be working at home because it's Sunday. So it's the son's day. I'm going to work with the sons today. And then when it's daughter day, I'm going to do what the daughters want to do today. And then after I'm done, if somebody say, hey, Dad, I want to have a conversation by myself with you. Hey, boy, then we just have Sunday. So scram, go play with your son, your brother and some toys, So, I'm busy, I'm getting ready for my next, great thing to save the world. First world that we need to save is it's our home. If we save that world, then that builds a strong foundation for the world we have yet to save out there. That's what we choose to do. So my lesson to my younger self as a dad, when you all were born, was to seek out individual opportunities to lean in and seek out those opportunities to lean in and see what's up with you. Check in with Joshua. Hey, what's going on with you? And I might have gleaned and learned some great new things that would have made me address them and had you have some better adjustments to my schedule, to our family dynamic, to a lot of things that you were asking me about when we had a similar conversation a few years ago on the whys of things, or have some unanswered questions. And some things would just be like, we grown, that ain't none of your business. However, but the things we can discuss on the kid level definitely would have been something that I could have did better. And that was me as far as that's concerned. And maybe I wouldn't have worked as much. It's hard for me to wrap my head around. I wouldn't have worked hard. And part of it was trying to make sure you all had a better lifestyle than I had growing up. We all do that. That's kind of a hardwired thing that most good parents try to do. I don't want you to go through what I went through. So I make sure that I work hard. So, because you all always had everything you needed and a few things you wanted. And so I want to make sure I was anal about my part in that, to make sure that you all had that. And like I said, the extracurricular activity wasn't cheap. They might say at the parent meeting, hey, it's only $500 per kid. I said, no, it ain't. It's $1,000 for me because I got 2 boys. It might be this much for dance class and track for the girls. That's cute, but it's twice as much for me because I got 2 girls in it. So it wasn't always, money didn't grow on trees. So between working hard and not just doing that, but then eking out time for volunteering, some of that away from home stuff was necessary, but it could have been managed, scheduled better and all that. So I will take my responsibility in that. What would you tell your younger self?
I would I guess I would say two things. One of them is probably not fair to my younger self because I really wouldn't know. But I definitely say to press a little more. Like if there's something that I'm curious about or that I got questions about, to lean into them. Hopefully it can't hurt to ask, because there are definitely questions that I had about, everything, regarding, all of our dynamics. And sometimes I'm like, well, I'll just chill on it or, it's a question, but it is what it is. I'll move on from it or, it's not my place or whatever. I would definitely tell myself to lean in a bit more. Because some stuff I'm just nosy, but other things, it's like, well, it feels like it's affecting me. I'm not sure if it is or not because I don't really understand what's going on. So it doesn't hurt to be like, hey, what's going on here? And I even still have to tell myself that to this day. There's still questions that I have about a lot of things, not just, with us, but just a lot of things that I'm like, just, it doesn't hurt to want to lean into that to see what's going on there. Because then at a certain point, the older you get, at a certain point, it does become your fault if you're not putting your foot out there to, figure out what's going on, to ask the questions, to get more insight. I'm like, I can't really be like, oh, well, my parents, this or that, And when I say your fault, I mean, it's Josh's fault. It's like, if I'm not reaching out trying to get that info, well, I can't really be like, oh, well, this isn't going the way I wanted to. So, I need to pin it on somebody or, this situation isn't ideal. Let me think back 14 years ago and blame it on something. It's like, well, this is my opportunity now to reach out and to get the information that I'm looking for, to foster better relationships and to ensure that I'm better as a person going forward. Like I said, I definitely would have challenged my younger self to start that a bit earlier on. Because what we didn't have like an abnormal dynamic. It's pretty normal across the country, but at the same time, for kids, it might be confusing, when you got so many different parties involved and you got a couple houses that you're going to and this, that, and that. It's like, well, if you got questions, ask them, and, hopefully, you've got mature parties involved they'll be able to meet you at that level to say, here's what's happening in a way that you can understand it.
Right.
Because a lot of what I do I carry a lot of pressure, but some of it is unwarranted and is self-inflicted. Part of it is unhealthy because I'm so used to it. That's just how I operate. So I feel weird if I'm not going through something difficult or carrying a lot of weight on my shoulders that I have to bear. But most of the time I don't have to. It's just because I'm not taking the steps necessary to alleviate it.
Right.
So in this sense, with a desire for more information as to how our family dynamic works, asking questions, inquiring about it more, I have memories as early as like preschool, kindergarten. So I'm lucid at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got memories of, I'm curious about that or that don't seem right or that's a little different or whatever. Is exploring that more. I definitely think it would have helped me a lot while I was growing up instead of having to wait until now where I'm like, okay, well now I feel like I'm allowed to ask the question because, I'm an adult now. So we're all at the same quote unquote level. It's like, well, no, even though I'm a kid, the dynamic still needs to exist where, you're a parent, you're a kid. Yeah, you guys can be cool, but you're not friends. Like that's a parent-kid relationship.
Right.
And it needs to maintain that, but that doesn't mean that, as a child, I can't say, hey, Dad, I got questions or concerns about this, hey, something's going on, whatever. So I definitely would have challenged myself to do that a bit more. And
do you think I do you feel like created an environment like, boy, don't be asking me nothing kind of environment, or do you feel like you would have been comfortable if you had made the decision to do it?
I definitely think it's the former, but not because you ever said anything that was like, don't ask me questions or don't try to inquire about anything. Like I said, number one, the nature of what it is that you did, it presents a hard exterior that sometimes feels harder to crack. And as a kid, especially like I said, with me, I'm not sitting up here crying every day, but on the scale, I lean a bit more sensitive. So, stuff might get to me a bit easier than maybe some other kid or whatever, especially as a boy, maybe the expectation is I'm not supposed to be that. That just wasn't how it was. I turned out okay, and it works well for, in the dating world, a lot of women, they like a guy who's in tune with their emotions. So it's working for me, but,
I feel you, babe. I feel you.
But at least at that, like, cause I used to go to school and I'm dealing with every single time I had like an issue with somebody, maybe like 5 out of 10 times I'm sitting up there crying about it or whatever. And I was trying to phase out of that. So I definitely, with a lot of that, I felt some apprehension to go and say, hey, what's going on? Just in case it wasn't received well. I'm like, well, I don't want to deal with the blowback. And then, like I said, just the dynamic of the family itself, there was a lot going on at the time. So it was kind of hard to keep up with. It was kind of hard to pinpoint one specific question that I had about everything that we were involved in or dealing with. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe what we were experiencing at the time, and it wasn't anything bad. Like I said, it's just, it's just a dynamic that wasn't as cut and dry as, two parents, two kids, this, that, and the third, it was a little bit more. So maybe for me as a kid, there was this maybe one too many things that felt confusing or unsettling, that it was too much to try to understand as a kid, even to try to formulate a question of like, hey, what's this about or what's that about? So maybe some stuff I think I just let slide until I became older, and I'm like, okay, well, now I kind of have a bit more of an understanding of maybe what was going on. So I have a much more solid foundation to springboard off of, to be like, hey, this is a much better worded question in which I can get to an answer that I'm actually looking for. Mm-hmm. So, I think, but even with that, I mean, the worst that anyone can say in a normal situation is no, I'm not going to talk about that, or I'm not going to answer that, or I'm not going to explore that. And at that point, that's like, there's nothing more that I can do about that. So, regardless of how I felt about the environment, I still wish that I would have asked or inquired, because, you just never know what the situation might entail. Obviously, hindsight, I'm fairly confident that we would have had conversations about it, and that I would have gotten some insight, at least to a degree of what I could understand at that time. Mm-hmm. But at least at that time, that's how I felt about it.
Yeah. No, and I just wanted to make sure I didn't, I know I didn't purposely try to do it. And something like you said, sometimes just by the sheer environment that you create, by the personality you have, because I guess if I have a personality that, I'm hard and nothing bothers me, then that can come across as intimidating,
Yeah.
And if you're a firefighter, you got to be, because you got to tell fire, like, you're going down, fire. I'm here to kick your ass.
Yeah, literally.
And you can't have no, like, well, hopefully we get to put you out. Would you be nice and go out, please? You got to go there, and you got to be like, hey, I'm kicking in the door. I'm crawling down this hall. I'm getting to the seat of the fire, and I'm knocking the shit out this fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that mentality. But like I said before, the younger self, me talking to my younger self would have been like, okay, when you pull out of that environment, then slow back down to a parasympathetic state, and then operate the rest of your life like that.
Yeah.
Because everything can be operated in a cut and dry, kick-ass mentality. And as an older guy now, it's something I reflect on more. And I'm glad I got the wherewithal to be able to do it and even to discuss a full circle with you in this environment. And I think it's something that all firefighters should do wherever you are. You might have young kids, but you don't have to wait till you get my age to figure it out. Mm-hmm. As Josh said earlier, and we'll talk about this as we kind of wrap things up. Because my goal has never been not to be flawless. I just at this point want to be reflective. But reflective don't have to wait till you get to the end of something, then reflect. You can do strategic reflection along the way. So it won't be that much to unpack when you get, further down the road with everything. Leadership isn't balanced by time. It's balanced by present intention and repair. And I think if I did a lot of that early on, and you didn't turn out bad. It ain't like, he's like, hey, I pulled you out the street and be like, hey, can we talk? And let me clean you up and get you a shave, and then you can be on the podcast,
Yeah.
But, you're in law school, and the other three are doing well in their own right, and so we're proud of them, and who knows, might have them on one day if we have a discussion and see, some of their insights. But the reason you were the lightning rod in this is because you and I had a specific conversation about these topics, and I was able to be transparent on where my headspace was at the time, to set the tone to let you know that it was an intentional, mean thing to be or whatever. I was intentionally trying to work hard to provide a good life. And in that quest, I didn't always stop and smell the roses as much as I probably should have. And so I apologize for that part of it. But I'm not going to apologize for working hard and try to provide for my family. Because the other flip side is sometimes you got people who are too sensitive. They're always at home. They all, hey, Dad, go get a job. Just sensitive as you're here, and we got the lights cut off again. We don't want to hurt sensitivities. We want you to get out there and slay the dragon. So you got to have balance, and I always say balance is the ugly word. So at the end of the day, that balance was critical in all of this. And if we do that as much as we can, then we have a chance of having a successful life. But again, any parting words as we kind of end this conversation, my son?
Yeah, I think doing stuff like this is important for everybody, especially if they have kids or people they look after or relationships that they deem important. Because especially at this stage, and I'm only 25, so I'm not saying I'm old, but I don't feel like I'm 20. Like mentally, I feel like I'm a little bit older. Just how much, there's a lot of stuff that I do. I feel it's definitely aged me in that regard. So I'm trying to chill. But in that, all I want to do at this point and beyond is just be the best version of myself that I can be. And that means that I have to be okay with being told about myself. So the last thing that I want to do is allow my feelings about myself or any amount of pride that I have to prohibit that. It's some people who just hate, and that's cool. But it's a bunch of other people who have genuine constructive criticisms about how I may move or how I interact with other people. And at this point, I just want to take those to heart. And then I want to apply myself to improving my life in those areas. So that when I look back, I'm like, well, my life was a constant pursuit of greatness, and not just for my own personal gratification, but I need to be the quote unquote best version of myself to show up adequately for other people. So I'm at that point now where I want to be told about myself as much as I can so that I can I can really find out like the type of person that I can be. Because once I'm done with this like whole life, I want to be able to wring myself out and be like, you know what, I gave it all that I could. I looked at as many flaws as possible. I addressed them. I looked at a bunch of challenges and I stared them in the face. And then I went up and I tackled them as hard as I could. I looked at the relationships and I inquired about how much of service I can be to them as humanly possible. That's all I want to do, because like I can't take I can't take this with me. I can't take this with me. So any personal accolade, any materialistic like item or whatever that gives me personal gratification is cool for a split second. And then after that, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. Is the relationships that we build, the things that we're able to accomplish, and then the people who watch us. Like, because like I said, doing things is not just for me. You can do something and not have to say it. But if I'm watching you, if you're doing it to the best of your ability, that's going to inspire me to want to go do the same. Right. So doing all of these things and living as fully as I can, that's literally all that I'm focused on and what I'm trying to do. And I think it's important for parents to be able to have these types of conversations with their kids, because even if it is a moment of reflection, your life is not over. God willing, let's say 100 is the mark. That's still 40 years, maybe a good 30, depending on how you take care of your body, of like being active and living. It can go by like that, but honestly, that's a lot of time to get a lot of stuff done, to do a lot.
Right.
So I think it's beneficial for everyone. Like I said, for me, it gives me some more clarity on our relationship and the dynamic that we have going forward. But then it also gives me some insight on how I move in my own personal life and how I can be better for, you know, my friends, my other family members, you know, kids, and a wife one day, you know, God willing. So that's where I'm at with it. And I think this stuff is very important. Just to lay it out, because a lot of the times people might be apprehensive, you know, too much has happened, you know, maybe you feel like, you know, too much of a hole has been dug, right. Too much time has passed, or maybe some judgments might be thrown around. And honestly, if that's how it happens, then just let it. And then you go from there. Because I mean, the first conversation that we had, it was a bit of a slow roller because we had never really done it like that before. This is much more fluent because we've gotten some practice time into a degree. And then obviously ones after it will be much more efficient. Yeah. And they'll be more useful. We'll get a lot more effective information out of each other to be better going forward. So I think stuff like this is important. And, you know, any opportunity to do it is a blessing, and it should be taken advantage of, because, I'm 25 and God willing, I'm here for a while, but you just never know. And I'm not trying to be morbid, but at the same time, is every second you're on this planet, there should be some type of intention. And it's not going to be, because we're not perfect, but that should be the mark to strive for. And doing it as free as you can, which means that you've been told about yourself, you've gotten some insight as to how better of a person you can be. I think that that's the best way to do it. You don't want to shortchange yourself by thinking that you've already done it all, or that you're all good, because at that point you're capping yourself on how much better you can be. So I think stuff like this is important. Like I said, if you got the chance to do it, and take advantage of it.
Man, I don't even know what to come behind with that. That's my son, y'all. Fruit of my loins. I don't like to talk like that, but it's the fruit of my loins.
Oh my gosh.
Fruit of my loins from the fruit of the looms, you know. But seriously, no, that's good stuff. And you're right. Live with intention. And a lot of the lessons you just got through talking about, that's stuff that makes for not only great people, is universal across excellence, which means that great firefighters take to heart a lot of what you just said, then especially young guys, you got a new 25-year-old firefighter coming on that chooses that profession and not choose to be an attorney or whatever, those words can resonate with them as well. Be intentional. You ain't gonna do it all the time, every time, but be intentional. Be intentional about your training. Be intentional about your family. Be intentional about your family at work as well as your family at home. Be intentional about your genuine service, so the frequent flyer don't turn into like, oh my God, them again. Be intentional about always showing up with your A game. And when you're intentional about stuff like that, those kind of things prime the pump that it's not that hard to say, you know what, I've been so intentional about everything else. Let me be intentional about my kids or my spouse or whatever, And when you do that on a regular basis, you epitomize the things that we try to teach when we go around the country teaching our personal leadership model of making sure you have that balance between your personal leadership and your professional leadership. It shouldn't be one is way, they should be as even as you can make it. Sometimes you give a little, sometimes, it might be some imbalances because of whatever demands are at the time.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's what you should be striving for. Not that I'm a kick-ass firefighter here, but when it comes to my personal relationships, whatever they may be, I suck, or my personal relationships are really good, but I don't invest the time it makes to bring my A game when I'm at work.
Yeah,
there has to be some balance in there. And when you do that, you're the more holistic firefighter that the public deserves and your agency deserves.
Yeah,
and your family deserves. You're the leader. You're the leader. You're the leader. As far as being whoever you are in your family, whether you're the mom or the dad in the family, your kids are looking up to you. Legacies are being built, in whether you're intentionally trying to do it or not, it's going to get built. Is you can take control of some of the reins and some of the narrative and then guide it in the wisest way possible. And then if you do, you turn out definitely in a lot of ways better than some of the things I did, or you just might get blessed in grace and have great kids like I got. This one being the highlight today in Joshua, but definitely with 3 more with Chelsea and Christine and Cortland, all doing good in their own right. I'm not putting anything on nobody's books. If I do put anything on books, it's school books, so. But everybody's doing well, and I feel blessed to do that, even though I didn't always do it right. And so there's God's grace in all of that, and I appreciate that, and I pray a great prayer of thankfulness often, if not every day, for that. And so it is a blessing to have a great firefighter family like I've always been blessed to have, and a great personal family. And it's just like any other family. We've had our ups and downs, our ins and outs, our things that might break you or something, but we've always still survived as a family. And not just survived, we thrived. We have thrived and continue to do so. And you got to speak what you want. I don't want to say, how y'all doing? We surviving. We thriving. Even if it don't look like it. Even if we're going through some stuff, we thriving.
Yeah.
How y'all doing? Oh, I'm just making it. No, we made it. That's how that's how we talk, and that's how we identify what our end vision always is, keep an eye on the prize. Yeah. Just like Joshua said, his end vision is to be number one. So when he has that end vision like that, that's why he spends nights in the law library and falls asleep there. That's why he brings his books home and then say, I'm just going to leave all that at school, because he's going for that number one spot. scheme, plot. You don't know about that, Luda. You don't know about that. You know, that's how you end up at number 20 out of 140. I'm not trying to talk about 140, but 140 might not brought their books home. I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm not here to judge. I'm looking at the fruit on the tree. But that's how you get down. But guess what? Uncle Larry used to do some of the similar stuff in his profession. You know, I took my proverbial books home and did my little extra. And why you doing that? Well, you don't take all that, but a lot of times I did make sure it took all that.
Yeah.
That's why I've had some measure of success with me as well. So, but we have trying to be an attorney, trying to be a great firefighter. It demands that when people call on you, they call on an attorney. They want an attorney to go in and represent and take their business.
Yeah.
Balanced and wise, and the bulldog in it, a pit bull in it.
Yeah.
And when you guys want a firefighter to come in and handle it, so you want a firefighter. My baby's in there. No problem. We're going to get it. You don't want to be like, oh, well, do you need a hug? Because that looks really hot. That looks really dangerous. Hey, maybe you need a hug. No, get in there and risk your life for baby don't know and get my child.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to do. But balance that with also, once we're done with that, go home and hug your child, or go home and listen, or go home and be empathetic to your family at home. They need that kind of intentionality, just like your job demands a different kind of intentionality. That's that balanced personal leadership that we always talk about. So anyway, it's been great. It's been fun. We got to run, but I was so turned out to be one of my favorite guests. I've been interviewing some famous people in the fire service, but I'm gonna tell you one. My heart was listening, and I'm learning as I'm listening. I'm listening to this person that's the fruit of my loins, and learning from him. So that's a mind. I don't want to say that word, but it's a mind thing. Just like wow.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Good stuff. So thank you. I'm proud of you. And people now are bearing witness that why I am. And so keep up the good work. I'm always, as I always tell you, I'm always here for you. HEAR. I'm always here for you. And I can listen now more than ever before because I'm retired now. But
yeah.
And I wrote this little personal leadership thing that talks about empathetic listening. You're probably heard of it, So I'm just practicing what I preach. But thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for taking time from your busy, driven, intentional schedule with the old guy. And we try to hopefully help somebody who listens to the podcast and watching what we do. Y'all, it's January, the beginning of the new year, 2026. We're going to make it a great year. Let's do it with intention. We're going to be at the Missouri Winter Fire School coming up the first weekend in February. So come on out to Columbia, hang out with some great names. Us in Missouri, us instructors in Missouri, we kind of look at it, and even though we have out-of-town guests, it's kind of our little prelude to the big show, which is FDIC, which comes up in April. And so we like to kind of, wet our whistle there, kind of get the, hey, what's up? What's that? Hey, gonna see you in a couple of months, that kind of deal. And Joshua, of course, been hearing about the thing since he was a kid, and me going to FDIC, the big show in beautiful downtown Indianapolis. And so we'll be there. And we got some other stuff scheduled in between that Dave and I will be traveling to different parts of the world, different parts of the country, spreading our leadership message. www.gluenationldc.com and check out where Larry and David are going to be next. And then all deal. And Joshua, of course, been hearing about the thing since he was a kid, and me going to FDIC, the big show in beautiful downtown Indianapolis. And so we'll be there. And we got some other stuff scheduled in between that Dave and I will be traveling to different parts of the world, different parts of the country, spreading our leadership message. www.gluenationldc.com and check out where Larry and David are going to be next. And then also we're on all the social media platforms. So tune in for some funny stuff. I don't get into all that social, political arguments online because I call those quicksand conversations. You ain't gonna never dig yourself out of that. You ain't gonna never change a made up mind. So it's a gross waste of time. I wish you could say, I wish we all could say that one thing that somebody say, man, just because you said that on your post, I'm gonna change my mind. That's not gonna happen. People have made up their mind, and that's fine. We need a bunch of viewpoints to make the world go round. But live your best life. Do what you believe, and then let that be your evidence. Be more of a sermon walking instead of a sermon talking. I say that all the time. And when you do that, then your sermon talking gets you number 20 out of 140 in your law school class. I'm just saying it again because that's what's up, So keep up the good work. Safe travels back to the school, my brother. And we're going to close this session out. We'll be back next month with another great show with another great guest. And maybe David will be back there. Maybe be over the swine flu or something. Something, but whatever it is, fix it before you come back here because we don't want all this stuff. We're still wearing masks and stuff, so we don't want that. But anyway, be safe. Make it a great 2026. Set some goals. Speak it into existence. Speak it like it already has happened. And I guarantee you, I bear witness that a lot of victories have come out of that mindset, having that correct envision. So, excuse me. We will talk to you later, and be safe and good night.